My guest today is Ed Kraychek, the manager of pre-sales engineers for Unstructured Data Business Unit for Dell Technologies. Ed, welcome to the discussion.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Let me set just a little bit of context for our discussion, then we'll jump into the Q&A. The strain on agency IT infrastructures over the past year to support remote working isn't surprising. While the cloud helped accelerate digital transformation, agencies also must address challenges around storing data. Among their biggest goals has been how to distinguish their primary storage workloads, which require low latency and high availability, from secondary workloads used for backup, disaster recovery, and of course, archiving. Well, this may sound a little funny to talk about storage when we talk about digital transformation and supporting the remote and mobile workforce. But the issue here is they're delivering essential functions that previously have been limited to, in many cases, on-premise systems, and the ability to deliver those services swiftly and remotely becomes even more paramount. To that end, many agencies are adopting a hyper-converged infrastructure, HCI, that can deliver the scalability and flexibility to quickly meet shifting demands. Now, what is HCI, you may ask, Ed? You know, of course, but for our audience, just in case, it's a software-defined IT infrastructure that puts storage, compute, networking, and management into a single virtualized environment, eliminating silos and redundant tools. It combines the hardware with locally attached storage appliances in a unified software-defined framework that delivers greater scalability while reducing data center complexity. I know that's a lot of words there, Ed. You're going to explain a little better why HCI is important, I'm sure, during our conversation. HCI is important as well because many agencies are living in a hybrid cloud environment in the short and the near term. Now, you add to that a hybrid cloud environment, the challenges and opportunities around security, DevSecOps, and you can see how and why making your data accessible and secure is even more important. So with that context in place, let's talk more about why storage is an important consideration for agencies as they continue to modernize. Once again, my guest is Ed Kraychek, the manager of pre-sales engineers for Unstructured Data Business Unit for Dell Technologies. Ed, I'm going to go back to something I said. I know maybe it's a little funny. Why are we talking about storage? But storage is actually really important for everyone, not just the IT folks. So maybe start by telling us why people should be paying attention to storage, even if you're just an average employee that's focused on mission.
Yep. Well, you know, the real reason is data is really at the focal point of where we get all of our business intelligence from. So there's a ton of data out there, and you know, we hear from IDC and other industry analysts that 80% of the data being created today is unstructured data, and the ability to store all that data is key as to how we can do that efficiently and effectively while still being able to provide business tools that are going to give us the business intelligence we need from that data. We use data intelligence and business intelligence analytics to be able to do things that normally weren't done, I'll say in a previous data era. Now we're really approaching things from a data first perspective and really placing the value on the data more so than just the internal infrastructure that stores it all. It's really about that business intelligence and data intelligence that we're going to get by having a data first strategy.
The other piece I imagine also is the data to the edge. So your storage needs to understand or be able to support the data and the mission area to the edge, because so much compute is happening further and further away from that old school data center.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if I were to quote another statistic, IDC is saying that, they're saying by the year 2025, 75% of all the data that's created is going to be coming in from the edge. It's going to be created at the edge. I mean, we see this today. We see it a lot from an ingest perspective. Everybody talks about the Internet of Things and the data that's coming in. It's all sensors at the edge, it's video surveillance, it's a lot of different data ingests that aren't obviously happening in the main data center. They're happening in field sites and buildings, sensors on cars and airplanes and vehicles of all sorts, whether it's military, whether it's civilian, it really doesn't matter. There's just so much data that's being created and ingested at the edge that we have to be, have an agile data model that can ingest data at the edge, analyze data at the edge, be able to create the data mobility that's going to move data from the edge to the core. And, as you alluded to, talking about the cloud, ultimately probably residing in the cloud.
So you outline maybe the challenges that we're seeing, the future where agencies and other organizations are heading toward. What concerns you? Are there some things that you're seeing today that is saying maybe agencies aren't setting themselves up for success in the future, whether short term or long term?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the evolution of the cloud strategy within federal agencies. It started out as cloud first, and it evolved to cloud smart, which is actually a perfect direction because that really takes into account that data first model. It's being able to put your data where it is of most value, and also where it is most accessible and usable in a from a performance perspective. So by having a cloud smart data strategy and a data first strategy, we're able to analyze the value of the data, the type of data it is, what we're going to do with that data, and be able to figure out where the data should reside at any given point during its life cycle.
You brought up this idea of understanding the need to ingest it, to analyze it, to create mobility all at the edge. That's really core to really how agencies can move forward. And you quoted one statistics about 80% of all data is unstructured. Is this why part of the reason why we're focused on the storage issue so much is because of agencies need to understand that some data need to be stored closer to the edge. Some of it can be stored at the data center, but because so much of it is unstructured, they need to kind of understand that they need to have that flexibility and scalability that comes with kind of the new view of storage.
Yeah, and well, with unstructured data, I mean, because it grows so rapidly and it's so prolific, you really need a foundational architecture for unstructured data that's scalable. Whether that's at the edge, whether it's at the core data center. Typically we see unstructured data solutions as being a scale out type of architecture that allows agencies to be more nimble and reactive to the storage of that unstructured data. I mean, if you look at historical data storage models, an appliance model, a dual controller model, where basically it's a monolithic type of storage solution where you have to be able to look at how much data you have today, and then project out 3 to 5 years how much data you're going to create or store based on your current data growth models, and then figure out what type of appliance footprint you're going to put in there to be able to handle that growth over the next 3 to 5 years. With a scale out type of storage solution, it tends to be a lot more consumable because you actually put in the footprint of the amount of capacity and performance that you're going to need at that moment in time. After that, as your needs grow, whether it's performance or capacity, you have the ability to add in the scale out model, just like a hyperconverged model. You add individual nodes that have capacity, compute, networking, to be able to respond in a easily consumable, easily upgradable fashion, to be able to grow as the needs grow, and so you're not putting a monolithic footprint in up front that costs a lot of money and you have to have all this extra headroom to be able to grow. You basically grow scale out systems as your needs grow.
I think that's a hugely important point to kind of delve into a little bit, because so many times agencies are buying, well, nobody knows how much their servers and data needs will grow. So they just buy too much and a lot of it sits empty or a lot of it sits unused, or the vice versa. They underestimate and then they have to go out and buy something right away because they're about to run out of space. Walk me through why this scalable, kind of understandable approach is really starting to catch on, and how are agencies starting to understand where they can go with this flexible, scalable approach?
Yeah, well, it extends, the complete life cycle of storage. So we talk about edge to core to cloud. It's all the same underlying, foundation of scale out. You can have the scale out at the edge, you have scale out at the data center, And then you can leverage that to the cloud and being able to have more data agility and mobility depending on, where the data is, where it's needed, what type of performance and operations you're actually doing with on your data to analyze it and interpret it. So in terms of being able to have that data at the right place at the right time, having that foundational scale out infrastructure, being able to scale up rapidly to respond to the needs of the business is kind of key. I mean, in the same respect, in a scale out architecture, you can scale up and scale down depending on the needs.
A lot of what we've been talking about is this high growth data situation, right? A lot of data is growing. We talked about the scalable way that's important. Let's relate this back to the beginning of the conversation, IT modernization. Why is this another piece to it? You mentioned business intelligence and making decisions based on data. Walk me through why are we, how does this relate back to IT modernization? Why is it important to that part of that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, leveraging, modern tools for analysis and artificial intelligence are giving us a lot more insight into our data, a lot more insight into potential correlations between data types that were never put together or analyzed at the same time, or analyzed and compared in different ways to be able to look for trends in the data that might not have been uncovered previously. I mean, we've got a lot of different ways to look at data now that go way beyond what we would consider traditional database processing or something like that. That really give us a lot more value out of our data. Even our old and archived data is now being able to, in a data model like this, we're able to keep that data online instead of having to archive it to tape and then having to restore it from tape. Now with cloud technologies and agile file system type solutions, we can access that data in the cloud, analyze it in the cloud, and still maintain a high level of value of that data, even though it may be old, or maybe some new insights are coming out and they want to pull some of that data back and analyze it. It just gives it a lot more speed to let's say speed to intelligence from the data.
I think you bring up a really interesting point that maybe in the next segment we can delve into a little bit. The need for the data to support the emerging technologies, whether it's AI or machine learning, or just the advanced data analytics that a lot of agencies are starting to move toward. So Ed, on that note, we're going to live a little bit of a cliffhanger into the next segment. People can stick around and see, and we can continue our conversation. Let's take a quick break. You're listening to the discussion Innovation in Government, sponsored by Carahsoft on Federal News Network.